Welcome to Sons of Saturday Irish. I'm Tyler Wojak, and alongside me, as always, is Luke Smith. And it's good to be back. We've been gearing up for the upcoming season over the past few weeks. And now that Notre Dame's preseason camp is almost underway here, we're excited to be back on the mics to talk some ball. We're going to catch up on everything that's happened over the past couple of weeks around the program, which has honestly been kind of a lot for July, including the reveal of Notre Dame's Shamrock Series unis, some updates on the recruiting trail, both good and bad. Before we dive into this year's team and discuss how we're feeling about the Irish as they get set to open their fall camp, even though it's in August, we call it fall camp on Friday, August 5th. Then we'll wrap up the show by answering a few fan-submitted questions. We always appreciate it when you guys send them in, so thank you to everyone who did. But first, Luke and I have a little show announcement.
Yeah, we do have an announcement. We have a YouTube channel now, so if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you're probably looking at my face. Sorry about that, but we'll be posting all of our episodes on that channel moving forward. So with that said, please subscribe to it or just don't listen to the show. That's really, kind of what we're going to be pushing moving forward. So we'll obviously still release this on other platforms, but just subscribe or lose my number.
Yeah, we're going to still post this on Apple, on Spotify, everywhere. But now, yeah, if you want to see our face, and now you can see where we record these. I'm currently in my roommate's, he calls it an office. It's literally his closet. I don't have enough space in my room for a desk. So that the pleasant background. Luke, where are you at?
Yeah, this is my room. I moved like 2 weeks ago, so my room's pretty big now, but it's like 90 degrees today and the AC doesn't work that well, so it's kind of hot. So if you start to see some sweat pouring down, that's why. It's a little bit gross out.
Podcasting in the elements.
Yeah.
All right, let's start off with the Shamrock Series uniforms. Notre Dame revealed the uniforms it will be wearing for this year's Shamrock Series game against BYU in Las Vegas. They did the video, a knockoff from The Hangover. I'm sure you've seen it by now with Marcus Freeman, Isaiah Foskey, Michael Mayer, and the Golics, Mike Golick Jr., Mike Golick Sr. I thought it was really funny. The acting from Foskey and Mayer was a little rough at the very beginning, but I actually think they kind of got in their comfort zone. It got much better as it went on. So what are your early impressions of the video and also the uniforms themselves?
I want to know who paid for that, to be honest, because that was some pretty high production value, regardless of what you thought about the acting. Also, I don't know who this booster is that's just giving Freeman these really nice cars to drive around, but whoever he is, that seems to be a thing between the Ferrari and whatever he was driving in that. The uniforms, they look fine. Don't get me wrong. I think there's some weird patterns. The lettering, that's Vegas script, I don't really like. They kind of remind me of the Notre Dame white basketball jerseys, and that would be just classic Under Armour, just ripping off something they already did, so they don't have to produce anything more. We got to get out of that deal, but as these uniforms go, they're not that bad. So that's the nicest way of saying they're okay, they don't suck.
I like the all white and the gold. I like that. I like that part. I like that they kept the helmets normal. Whenever they mess with the helmet, I've not liked a single one of the alternate helmets. So that was all good, but you're right. What is up with Under Armour in this weird, pattern
garbage
script?
Ass company? That's what's up with them.
I don't know what, it's the same when the baseball uniforms, it's the same on the basketball uniforms. Yeah. And I love when they put out that information, this mark, it represents 1842 and the original Golden Dome fire.
You know what those patterns look like? It looks like the third grader that's bored in class and starts drawing the backwards Superman S's in his notebook. They're just stupid patterns. So that's a shot at Under Armour. But anyways,
they're so committed to them. Other than that, I like the all whites. How would you compare it to other Shamrock Series uniforms? Because I think that even though it's not the best one, I think it's still probably top 3.
Yeah, that's not really a good thing, though.
We've had some bad ones. The one that I saw today that I was repulsed, the olive green ones we wore against
Army in San Antonio.
Yeah, I think that was in 2016.
I don't think I don't even remember watching that game.
It's one of the 4 games he won that year in 2016.
I think it was on in the background. I was at the Iowa-Michigan game in Iowa City. But yeah. The only ones that I really liked were the 2013 ones in Jerry World. Outside of that, I mean, my reaction to the Yankee Stadium ones was strong. I wanted everybody at Under Armour fired that day because those were pitiful. And they did look slightly better in person, but they were still pitiful. I thought last year was stupid. I thought they lied about their explanation with the whole city of broad shoulders thing, and really they just looked like a ripoff of the Packers jerseys that they were going to wear the year
Yeah,
before.
that's right.
I didn't like the ones they wore at Soldier Field. I just thought they were kind of ugly. In 2012, that is. The monster ones, like they were whatever. The jersey was cool. Everything else, I don't know. So yeah, I'm sorry if I'm coming off wrong, but I just have not liked anything Under Armour's put out.
The thing is, though, Notre Dame's uniforms, I like them so much, like the classics, that whenever they tinker with them, they've never once looked even close to as good as the normal ones look.
That's true. Honestly, I think I almost like our just white away uniforms more than the home uniforms. I don't know why that is, but I do. So
it's the white and gold.
Sometimes I just wish. Yeah, I just think it looks good. It looks clean. So no reason to break a good thing, but
yeah,
they do it every now and then.
One time a year. All right, let's move to some recruiting news. We'll move on this pretty quick. Do you want the bad news or the good news first?
Well, it depends on what you believe.
Okay. Let's go with the less than good news. So this past weekend, 5-star defensive end / outside linebacker Keon Keeley, a Notre Dame commit, took an unofficial visit to Alabama. There's already reports out there saying that he might flip, or maybe he already is silently flipped. I don't know. There's a lot going on there. Plus, 4-star safety, 5-star if you look at it on 3, Peyton Bowen. He's visited Texas A&M and Oklahoma multiple times over the summer. His little brother is also being recruited. I believe he's a rising sophomore or junior. So he's sort of tagging along with him on these visits. But the reports coming out of this are not great. Notre Dame doesn't, even though that both of these guys are committed to Notre Dame, it seems like Notre Dame is on the back burner now, depending on who you want to believe. And it sucks. Like, it's just a really weird time. And no matter which way you flip it, like, it's just not good for Notre Dame at all, because these are their top 2 recruits in the entire class. And like, there's been all this pomp, there's been all this circumstance about how good Notre Dame recruiting is right now. But if they lose these 2 guys, like, I mean, how good is this class? Is it that much better than what we've seen in years past?
Probably not. But like, I'm not so convinced that's going to happen. There's still a lot of time left. Obviously, everything that's being reported nationally is not that great right now. But these guys have to churn out stuff to write stories anyways, right? They got to get paid somehow. No, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And frankly, this is why I don't like following recruiting, because it's weird to get invested in where a 17-year-old might go to college. And that's really, like, the only thing I'll add is that I think Keon Keeley might be the best player in the country in that class. So losing him would really suck, as would losing Peyton Bowen. But just don't care that much. Like, just get over it. You know, they're high schoolers. Let them make their own decision. If you're tweeting at recruits, get a fucking life. Get a fucking life. Like, some of the shit I have seen the last 2 weeks is truly pathetic. Like, and I don't know if people are just like, something is just not wired right up there, but it is pathetic. Grown ass men tweeting at 17-year-olds. Like, what the fuck?
And their moms. So, and their moms.
Like the guy that says he DMs Keon Keeley's mom every day. You have some fucking issues, pal.
All right, we're starting off strong here. Yeah, the funniest thing about that is when these fans tweet at recruits, do they really think, like, hold on, I've got it, guys. I know the secret message to say to Keon Keeley that's going to like prevent him from flipping. I'm sure Nick Saban is calling him the greatest football coach probably ever, but no. Mm-hmm. I got it.
Yeah, I just don't know. It's truly remarkable to me, like, day after day. I'm just blown away by the stupidity on display on that hell site that is Twitter. And, like, that is one of the entertaining things. You have competing idiots from different teams and just getting into fights with each other. Like, it's like, wow, it's just a town hall full of morons on this site. Anyways, if any of you are listening to this show, it's probably not the show for you because, like, I don't respect you.
When, you know, it's funny too, is like, when this happens, right, people get really upset about the fact that someone who is verbally committed to Notre Dame is visiting and looking at other schools, which I understand. Like, it's annoying. It's a little bit weird. Brent Venables, the coach at Oklahoma, he went on a big rant about this recently, about how he tells guys who I guess are prepared to commit to Oklahoma, don't do it. And he went on this long like rant just complaining about how guys who are committed go on visits, which I understand. Like if you're a college football coach, if a guy commits to my school, I would want him to not visit and be, stay true to his commitment. But that same coach is the one who's actively trying to poach Peyton Bowen, one of them at least.
Right.
Like, so it goes both ways here. And then from the other perspective here, Notre Dame is actively, well, I guess they already sort of forced a decommitment from the 4-star running back Dylan Edwards. He was committed to Kansas State. Notre Dame offers him a scholarship. They start moving on him pretty quickly. He immediately decommits from Kansas State, visits Notre Dame, and he's set to make his commitment public on August 6th. And by all indications, he's going to go to Notre Dame. So you can't get mad when Notre Dame's verbal commits are looking elsewhere when we're doing the same thing. It's not a Notre Dame problem. It's just a college football program. Or a college football problem. It's just sort of the nature of the business. And again, which is why, when you're really following recruiting, I get it. You have to do it because championships are won on the recruiting trail. That's been evident by what Georgia and Alabama and those schools have done in recent years. But man, it is a trip, and it is not really a super fun roller coaster ride to be on.
Yeah. I mean, Notre Dame's trying to do it with the Pitt commitment, Kenny Minchie right now.
Yeah, their quarterback.
Which this is probably the one time I would actually actively support that because anything that'll set Narduzzi off would be fantastic. But yeah, I honestly, I wish Notre Dame didn't recruit committed players. Like they just shouldn't. Like we have a problem with the dictionary. You don't get what committed means, clearly. Like that, I'm sorry. Like that's like you telling your girlfriend, like, yeah, we're dating, but like I'm gonna go out with this other girl too. Like
just to be
but
sure.
It's fine. Like nothing's gonna happen. We're just getting dinner together. Like it's bullshit. Yeah. That's what it is. And frankly, it's bad guidance. It's just a bad culture. Like I don't like it. That's the one thing I will criticize about recruiting is that if you're committed, you're not going anywhere else. Like the clown Novosad that recommitted to a school that he was already committed to.
That was so funny.
What is that? Like, come on, dude. Just who's telling you to do that?
Yeah, announcing your commitment to the school that you're already committed to is just a galaxy brain move. Okay, so last thing on recruiting. Since our last show, 5-star quarterback Dante Moore committed to Oregon. So this is all news, but we haven't addressed it on the show yet. But the real thing I want to talk about here is not so much his commitment because once things started to fall apart with Notre Dame and it became clear that Notre Dame really wasn't an option for him anymore, Oregon was the favorite, and that's where he's going. So good for him. The real story I think here is the reporting on his commitment because it's been all over the place, and it was all over the place as soon as he made that announcement that he was going to Oregon because you've got guys like Tom Loy from Irish Illustrated, who's super good at his job, very plugged in. He wrote this long 1,000-word piece saying NIL was not a factor at all in Dante Moore's decision. Meanwhile, Pete Sampson from The Athletic, friend of the program, said it was the determining factor and that it became more of a priority later on in the recruiting process with him. So just a super weird recruitment overall. Maybe 5-10 years down the road, we'll get the oral history about what exactly went down and how everyone at Notre Dame thought he was going there without a doubt. And then it just like literally all fell apart in the matter of weeks. And now he's ending up at Oregon, which at one point in his recruitment, there was no chance he was leaving the Midwest. And then he's going to Eugene. So just super strange, but we had to address it because we had addressed Dante Moore so many times in the past. And now that he's actually committed, just one last time before we just plug it and put it away for good.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. I completely forgot about this until right now. I actually had a super, super bizarre dream last night that myself and somebody else in the Notre Dame media space, I'm not going to name them, who I've never met before, we were in an office like trying to be bag droppers for Bryce Young to transfer from Alabama to Notre Dame. And we had a green Lamborghini for him. I just completely forgot about this. This was last night. Again, never met this other guy in the space. I'm not going to name him, but that was a weird dream I had. So I guess I'm thinking about NIL at night these nights or something. But Bryce Young to Notre Dame confirmed, I guess.
I can't even imagine the amount of money it would take to get. Okay. The good news is for Notre Dame, by the time you're listening to this, 4-star linebacker Jay Nosbury, he's going to announce his decision on Thursday, August 4th. He's probably going to be committed to Notre Dame by the time you're listening to this. And 3-star safety Ben Minich, or is it Minnick? I don't know. Anyway, he's going to make his commitment public on Friday. He doesn't have nearly the same star power that a lot of these guys have. And Notre Dame moved on him pretty quickly. They've been trying to add a fifth defensive back, regardless of what Peyton Bowen does, and it looks like they'll get him. So, look, that we've talked a lot about recruiting over the past summer. It's been all the rage ever since Marcus Freeman came on board, and for good reason. But now, fall camp is here. We can talk about actual football with guys who currently play for Notre Dame, who will wear the blue and gold this season, and I'm very excited. This is always a great time of year. You can kind of smell football in the air as summer comes to a close. But what's your mood about this team and this season as campus is about to start?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. They haven't had a schedule like this in a while, but I don't really see any reason why there should be significant drop off. Like, yeah, you have a first-time head coach, first-time quarterback. Yeah, there's a difficult schedule, but like program health's at a quarter-century high. It's not the program Brian Kelly, Charlie Weiss, Tyrone Willingham inherited. There shouldn't be a drop-off, and I fully anticipate the floor being 10 wins. I think it's going to take a while for USC to get there again. I don't know why there's so much money on them to win the title right now. It's good to have expectations when you're on the roll Notre Dame's been on. So I'm not going to just like, there seems to sort of be this sentiment that, oh, well, there could be some missteps this year. Why? Why would there be? They've won at an elite rate the last 5 years. Okay, guy that, hasn't been around. I'm sorry, the guy that has been around is no longer around, but it seems like the structure's in place. Like I struggle to see them having a drop off this year. I'm not gonna just anybody who's thrown out they could win 8-9 games. I just don't really see it.
I would just counter that by saying if the team is at full health and like something drastic doesn't happen, then yeah, I would agree with you that the floor here is 10 wins. I think Notre Dame is definitely capable of going 10-2. For me, I think I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm obviously excited for the season. There's going to be some tough games where Notre Dame will get a chance to show like where they're at. And like it's certain position groups, I feel really good. But I'm not gonna lie. I'm really nervous that Notre Dame is just a couple injuries away from things potentially going really off the rails, particularly at the skill positions on offense. They have 3 healthy scholarship running backs, including 1 true freshman in Payne, who he barely played in high school the last 2 seasons because he was dealing with injuries. And that we've talked about the receiver issue for a long time. So I guess I'm just a little bit worried about the depth there. Like if Mayer goes down or if like Lorenzo Styles goes down, that obviously concerns me. But I agree. Like the expectation for Notre Dame to just take a step back with no real added influence, that doesn't really make sense to me because you're right. Like the defense should be really strong. The offensive line should be really good. And even though, yeah, like potentially like playing Ohio State in the season opener is a really, really tall task. But there's like 6 automatic wins on the schedule, at least, really. And then, yeah, there's going to be some growing pains a little bit probably with Marcus Freeman and Tyler Buckner as well. We'll probably see a couple boneheaded interceptions this year that we haven't seen really in years past because we've had a veteran starting quarterback since 2018, no, 2017.
2019, really. I mean, did you see the pick that Jack Cohn threw against Cincinnati last year? That was pretty bonehead.
That's true. Maybe I'm saying there'll be a few more of those this year.
Okay.
But I agree. I'm just excited, man, because you're right. The schedule is great. Like it's going to be fun to play in some really good games. So Ohio State to start the season is awesome. And then the BYU game should be really good. Clemson coming to South Bend again this year is going to be really, really fun. The best home game this year by far. And yeah, USC to wrap up the regular season is going to be great. They've got Caleb Williams. They've got Jordan Addison. It's going to be here in Los Angeles. And I'm really, really excited about the opportunity for Notre Dame to shut them up because don't get me wrong. I think they're definitely heading the right direction. They're going to be really good here soon, but them being a contender for the national championship this year seems way too premature. So yeah, I'm excited about the games. I'm excited about the caliber of the opponents. But you got to admit, like a couple things go wrong, a couple guys get hurt, and Notre Dame might be in some trouble.
I mean, you said basically if our best player gets hurt, yeah, that would change things. Like, I mean, but
Not just
I don't
him.
expect that to happen. I just you can't think like that. Like going into camp, I'm not thinking about how somebody's going to get a horrific injury and we're going to lose them for the year.
Yeah, maybe that's just the way my mind operates. I'm
It
not
is. It
really
is.
a beacon of optimism. But yeah, I worry about injuries. But you're right. I think at the very least, this team should go 9-3. What's the over under at 8.5? I think on most books,
I think
8.5 or
8.5,
9.5.
Yeah. I think that sounds right.
Okay, that's fair. Now, obviously, the engine behind all of this, and really, probably the difference maker in this is particularly on the offense, but you could argue the entire team is Tyler Buckner, and it's kind of crazy that we're finally here with TB12 because the hype around him started back in March of 2019 when he committed, and that feels like an eternity ago, and maybe that's why expectations for him have simmered just because it's been so long and he hasn't had a ton of game action. So what are your expectations specifically for Buckner this season?
He's going to be a stud. It seems like everybody's forgotten about him, but he was a really big deal when he came in, and he's done nothing to make people have made people think otherwise. Like as he was pretty good when he got in last year. Honestly, I think it was a pretty large note that he played as much as he did as a freshman. When you look at some of the past Notre Dame quarterbacks who haven't gotten that experience, I don't see any reason why not to expect him to live up to the billing that he came in with. By the way, I would really recommend reading Tyler Horka's piece that he wrote on him the other day at Blue and Gold Illustrated. Kind of goes into what makes him tick. I thought it was a really good piece. Kind of talked to some people from his high school, including former Notre Dame All-American Shane Walton. So definitely check that out if you are subscribed to Blue and Gold. But I don't know. Like I see no reason why he can't be a stud, and that's what I'm expecting from him. The only thing that I guess might hold back on that is just the receivers that he's throwing to. But that said, I think that's a pretty capable group still, and if he's as good as we think he is, he'll make them better too.
I agree. All right, I'm going to give you a couple numbers here on Tyler Buckner. I want you to give me like over or under. This is sort of what I'm predicting, assuming he stays fully healthy all season. 2,750 pass yards and 25 pass TDs. Is that about what you would predict?
That sounds fair. What did Cohen throw for last year? Like 27 TDs?
Just a hair over 3,000.
Okay.
I think that includes the bowl game, though.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I think he'll throw 8 picks.
Sure. If we think he's going to take some risks. I feel like we haven't had a guy throw 8 picks in a while.
Last year, Cohen threw 7, 25 TDs. But Buckner also threw 3 and Pine threw 2. So right at 30 passing touchdowns last year. Now, running the ball, I think 650 rushing yards and 10 TDs would be that's very possible for Buckner this season. It's not necessarily Brandon Wimbush numbers because in 2017 he was our second leading rusher with like 850 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns.
He could not throw the ball.
Yeah. So hopefully with Buckner, he doesn't have to run as much, but the fact that they're going to be running that quad option so much more than we've seen in recent years, I think that you're right. The receivers he's throwing to are going to have a big say in all of this, but to round that out, 2,750 passing yards, 25 pass TDs, 8 interceptions, 650 rushing yards, and 10 rush TDs. I think it's very much within the realm of possibility for Buckner, and if that happens, I think Notre Dame's offense is going to be in a great place.
I agree. So no, I mean, and honestly, I might even go higher on some of those.
Yeah,
especially passing TDs. So yeah, we'll see. But I brought it up. You talked about it. I know it's been a theme. It's been talked about a lot. How concerned are you about the depth at running back and wide receiver?
I mean, I've already talked about it a little bit. I'm pretty concerned, just because we've seen these videos of Logan Diggs, and they are certainly encouraging. But there's a big difference between running drills on air with no pads and like lowering your shoulder into a yoga ball compared to like getting tackled by an Ohio State defender. Like that I don't think he's going to be playing. So against Ohio State, we're trotting out Chris Tyree, who's dealt with injury problems in the past, Audric Estime, and Jerron Payne. Because, I mean, unfortunately, Jadarian Price ruptured his Achilles tendon. He came into this summer workouts. There's a ton of hype around him. He looked really good in the spring. Probably would have gotten more touches than Logan Diggs did last year as a true freshman. So that part is concerning, but the fact that they have Tyler Buckner back there to take some of the load off the running backs as a runner should be really good for that group. And then you could split Tyree into the slot. He showed he can be really effective as a pass catcher in that Fiesta Bowl. But we'll see. If Lorenzo Styles makes the jump that we all think he's capable of doing, then the fact, right now Notre Dame doesn't have a 1 at wide receiver just because we haven't really seen it yet. But that doesn't mean that Lorenzo Styles can't be that guy. Like, I know this might be a bit of a reach, but look at Will Fuller's stats between his freshman year and his sophomore year. Like, freshman year, he played here and there, not that much. I think he had a couple of TDs. And then his sophomore year, I think he had 14 touchdowns or something like that. Will Lorenzo Styles be as good as Will Fuller in his sophomore year? I don't know, but we already saw a lot more in his freshman year than we saw from Will Fuller. So I don't see why he couldn't have a huge year. And if that's the case, if he's as good as we think he is, then my concerns at receiver will be a little bit less. But we'll see with Braden Lenzy. I don't expect to see Joe Wilkins maybe at all, unfortunately. Really bummer for him because he's just, these past few years when he's finally had an opportunity to play, he's just been dealing with injuries. The good thing is for all of this is that they have the best tight end in the country in Michael Mayer. So, like, these concerns are real, but hopefully when you have a guy like Mayer, he's able to erase a lot of those.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm honestly not as concerned at running back. Like, I think Diggs will be back pretty early in the year, to be honest. Just because the whole labrum thing has actually not made... Like, I know people who have had labrum surgeries. That's a really long process, and it just doesn't really seem like he even had, like, a brace on. Like, I just feel like it's very surprising to me how quickly he seems to be going through this. And I think that Chris Tyree is very good, and I think Estime is going to be very solid. So I'm not as worried about that. I am sort of concerned about receiver. The only worries I really do have about depth bring me back to the Fiesta Bowl last year, where we threw the ball 70 times because we couldn't run it, and our core of 5 receivers were gassed by the fourth quarter. I hope we don't have to resort to that this year because we don't have enough healthy backs to run the ball. But the receiver thing worries me a little bit more than the running back, but I don't know. I just try not to dwell on these things because something will inevitably happen, and I can't do anything about it. So, so don't want to think about it.
All right, I like that. Now, you mentioned the Fiesta Bowl and how Notre Dame basically just completely forfeited any chance of running the ball. And that was in part because of Oklahoma State's defense. But that should not happen at all this year because the offensive line should be much, much improved. It's kind of funny when you think back to last year, too, considering how the offensive line was by far the biggest weakness of the team. And we talked about it every week. Like, are they going to be able to do anything? Like, they got pushed around by Toledo. And now, a year later, like, they're expected to be one of the best offensive lines in the country. Yeah, the hype is real with this group. And now a big part of that is obviously Blake Fisher being healthy, Joe Alt getting more experience, and then obviously Harry Hiestand coming on aboard, probably the best offensive line coach in the country. So there's a lot of hype. What are your realistic expectations for this group?
I mean, I expect they should be good. But at the same time, I don't really know what to expect. Because let's face it, there was a stretch of 6 or 7 games last year where they looked better, but they didn't really play anybody in that whole stretch. And when they played good teams last year, they weren't very good as a group. Now, granted, that group didn't have Blake Fisher outside of 2 games and featured Jarrett Patterson at center instead of this year's expected starter, Zeke Correll, as Patterson will push to guard. What does that change look like? I don't know. But I'm eager to see. But I think just something important to keep in mind is that just because you bring back a lot of guys doesn't mean it's always a good thing. I don't want to lump us in with North Carolina.
I was thinking that too.
Remember how many people talk about North Carolina had all these returning starts and they were the worst fucking offensive line in the country last year. So it's something to keep in mind. Now, don't aggregate that. I'm not comparing them to North Carolina. But I'm just saying that jump doesn't always naturally happen. It should, given the Harry Hiestand factor and everything, but it just doesn't always happen.
Right. And another thing, too, about the offensive line is, like, this group, the way that it's going to be constructed, how we assume with Blake Fisher at left tackle, Jarrett Patterson at left guard, Zeke Correll at center, Presumably Josh Rugg at left guard. It could be Andrew Kristofich, but we'll see there. He played really well when he came in most of the time at left guard last year. And then at right tackle, Joe Walt's going to be left tackle. Blake Fisher is going to be right tackle. That group as a unit has never played together like that. Jarrett Patterson has never played guard. So it's going to be, I think that what we see at the beginning of the season with the offensive line is going to be a lot different compared to the end of the season. I think this is going to be a group that improves a bunch as the season goes on. But yeah, don't be surprised if this group might experience a little bit of growing pains at the beginning as well. Even though there's a lot of experienced guys, it just takes some time. And we saw how much the offensive line improved from beginning to end last year. The jump is going to be even bigger. So by the end of the year, yeah, I think this could be, one of the best offensive line groups in the country. But contending for the Joe Moore Award, just based on what we saw last year, I think that might be a little much.
Yeah, I don't know. It does seem like a little bit maybe too lofty, but then again, didn't Michigan win the Joe Moore Award last year?
They did,
and they were dog shit in the COVID year. So anything can happen. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right, let's go to the other side of the ball. You and I have talked about this a little bit before. We both think that Notre Dame's defensive line is probably the best position group on the team from top to bottom. They're loaded at the top with Isaiah Foskey, but they also have so much depth across the board there. So they're really, really talented. The linebackers behind him, Notre Dame could be starting 3 senior linebackers. That's awesome. And Marist Leofau last year didn't play because he broke his leg in fall camp, but the talk about him in camp last year was he was maybe the best player on the defense, would probably have led the team in tackles. So they get him back this year. They got J.D. Bertrand. They got Bo Bauer. They got Jack Kaiser. I feel like nationally, this group isn't being talked about enough. Do you think Notre Dame's front seven is actually underrated?
I don't know. I don't know if I would go that far. It could be adequately rated. It's very deep. I still don't think it's quite Georgia or Clemson, but it's a group that can get you to the playoff doing their job. I believe that. I'm kind of interested to see what guys like J.D. Bertrand look like when they're not playing 10 million snaps with the broken arm.
Yeah, and I was going to say have both arms.
So, yeah, I like it's an exciting group, and it's really close to being like, a top 2 group in the country. I just don't think it's quite there. And when you have groups that are as talented as a Georgia or a Clemson, you just get kind of overshadowed by that. But, I think I'm fine with where I think they fall into the national scene. But who knows? We'll see how the season goes.
I think they're a little bit underrated nationally because I don't think a guy like Jason Adamiola is getting the respect that he deserves. And I get why Foskey sort of grabs all the attention. Physically, he's so overpowering. He's a freak. Last year, he was unbelievable. And, he was the guy with Marcus Freeman as they did like the ESPN car wash and everything. And he could be a first rounder this year. So I get why he gets all the attention. But Jason Adamiola was unstoppable in some games last year. So you have those two anchoring it. Plus, I think a lot of people are very bullish on Riley Mills as he steps in to be a starter. If he's as good as people think he is, that just seems like a very dominant group. And when you have a defensive line that's that good, and then you have 3 senior linebackers, it gives Al Golden, the new defensive coordinator, the opportunity to implement a little bit more complex schemes. They can disguise things a little bit differently, and they can wreak havoc on the quarterback. And we have some questions about the defensive backs, and we'll get to them in a second. But like, if those front 7 are as good as we think they are, it could be like, I think that's definitely a playoff defense. And side note, I want to add, I think Jack Kaiser might be due for one of the biggest breakout years on the team. He had 2 touchdowns last season, and it's kind of
Thanks, Graham Mertz.
Yeah, yeah. They were, and what was the other one? Navy. Where he just like
no, it was Georgia Tech. I'm pretty sure.
Georgia Tech. I had 2 just terrible teams. But he had 2 touchdowns, and he's deceptively athletic. And we have to say that because he's a white linebacker, but he's actually tests out really high among all the other linebackers on the team, and he's going to be a starter this year. He doesn't really get talked about much, but all in all, I think that front 7 is going to be, you're right, they might not be Georgia, they might not be Clemson, but I think putting them in the top 15 in the country is pretty adequate.
Yeah, and if they can be disruptive enough to help the back end of that defense, and then that's great. But with that, there seems to be some questions around the defensive backfield, but Who would you say of the defensive backs is most crucial to Notre Dame's success this season? Because I have an answer that I don't think a lot of people will have.
All right, so I'm going to say Brandon Joseph because like the comparisons to Kyle Hamilton are ridiculous. It's just not feasible. But if he can be the sort of ball hawking safety that he showed he can be when he was at Northwestern, I think it's totally realistic for him to have 7 interceptions this year. We just got done talking about how good the defensive line is going to be and how they're going to get after the quarterbacks and force them into making bad decisions. So who better to take advantage of those opportunities than Brandon Joseph roaming around the deep middle third? We don't know who's going to be the safety opposite him. Like DJ Brown, I thought was actually underrated last year. He had a really bad start to the season when he completely whiffed on that run against Florida State, and then he took it to the house. Not a great start, but I thought when he came in after Hamilton went down, he actually was really solid. Now, you can make the argument that Notre Dame was playing shit teams, which I think is fair. A lot of times, the guys that Notre Dame was going up against weren't nearly as good as the guys that they're going to face this year, particularly in Week 1 in C.J. Stroud. But I think he's going to be a lot better. Ramon Henderson could be good. Xavier Watts now, who actually has played the position for a year. All those guys are going to be important, and Cam Hart as well. But like Brandon Joseph, if he's like getting picks left and right, and that's apparently what he did in spring ball, it changes the whole dynamic of the defense. Where now they're not just like creating stops, they're creating turnovers, and could totally flip the game on one of those.
Okay, fair enough. That's not my answer. My answer is Clarence Lewis. You know what you're getting with Brandon Joseph, what you just said. You know what you're getting with Cam Hart. He's a really good corner. I also, as you mentioned, think people are generally high on Ramon Henderson. They're excited about Xavier Watts and pretty pleased with DJ Brown at safety, too. I mean, hell, Chris O'Leary was extending very high praise towards Tariq Bracy this past spring. I think he said something about how he could be the best nickel in the country. So the question is, can Clarence Lewis bounce back from a bad Fiesta Bowl and really somewhat of a sophomore slump in general and mirror what Cam Hart does on the other side of the field? If he can do that, then that's a really good secondary. And I don't know if that, I know that there's probably some thoughts that Jaden Mickey could take his spot. I don't know if I necessarily see it that way. I think I might see it as Jaden Mickey's going to play, but like it's a more positive thing. You have another guy in the rotation. You're spelling Clarence Lewis from time to time. But I think a lot is going to hinge on how he bounces back. And I said this in January that it was going to be his redemption year, so I got to stick with that. So, yeah, it's Clarence Lewis.
Yeah, you've been the leader on the Clarence Lewis hype train.
Well, I think it's because other people have not been as kind, so I'm staying on it.
I haven't been kind since the moment he took the field as a cornerback named Clarence. I was pretty much out on Clarence Lewis because of his name, whether it's right or wrong. Look, like I said at the time, I expected Clarence to do my taxes, not to cover the deep third. But if you're leading the hype train, I'm inclined to believe you. And if he does improve a lot, like it does kind of change the entire dynamic of the secondary.
Yeah, and who says he can't? So I don't know. We'll see.
All right, special teams, third of the game. Marcus Freeman has been pretty upfront regarding his concern about the kicking game, far more than anything else. He sort of dismisses the concerns about receiver, which of course he's going to do. He's not going to be like, well, shit, guys, you're right, we are screwed at receiver, like, and then blamed Alexander, the guy that was his first move as a coach was to can him. So I'm sure there's real concern there because he did that, and he's he wasn't born yesterday. He knows. He sees the same things we do, if not a lot more. But the blue and gold game definitely did not do anything to help out those concerns about the kicking game. Notre Dame has Josh Bryan. They recruited him. They added a transfer from Arkansas State and Blake Grupe. And they added a Harvard transfer at punter. People don't, I guess just with the Jonathan Dorr, he's been around for a little bit, but when you don't have any idea what's going to happen with your kicker, it's not fun. And I think we sort of forgotten about that. So how concerned are you about the kicking game?
It's going to be bad. I've accepted that. It also doesn't make me feel any better every time I see a new specialist being brought on the roster, like the transfers you mentioned. I think there were a couple others too.
I think they added a preferred walk-on.
It's also just, the kid from Fenwick who's a caddy at the country club a couple towns over also is now on the team. He plays soccer at Notre Dame. So it's a little concerning to me that we needed to bring on Blake Gruppe from Arkansas State and John Sott from Harvard with as highly touted as Josh Bryan and Bryce McPherson were coming out of high school. Now I know McPherson's a freshman, so whatever. Josh Bryan, what's your excuse? Justin Yoon started kicking the day he got on campus. So here we are. I just don't think Gruppe has the chops. He's 5'0", 100'0". Sorry, I fucked that up. 5'0", 100'0", and I don't think he can hang in with the best team in the land. I just don't.
He's on the Lou Groza watch list. So
yeah, do you just like if you're on the depth chart, do you get added to that?
You do.
I'd put you probably put Kyle Brin's second half of 2014 on that before I put Gruppe on it. So. That's how poorly I just don't feel good about him at all.
Yeah. You know, the nice thing about Dorr is that at least he was predictable. Like, I feel like
he was trying to make big kicks.
Yeah. Every time he
miss a lot of easy ones, but
he trots out there for 48-yard game-winning field goal against Virginia Tech.
He had 2 game winners last year.
Yeah. And I was not worried at all. I knew he was going to bury it. Now, chip shot against Oklahoma State in the first half of the Fiesta Bowl, no chance. Yeah. So at least we could take comfort in knowing exactly what was going to happen every single time Jonathan Dorr took the field. I have no clue what to expect with any of these guys.
Yeah, it's a little bit alarming. Jay Bramlett also had the tackle that saved the end of the first half against Clemson on ETN in 2020. So his contributions will be missed as well down in Baton Rouge. But yeah, I don't know. And listen, like I just don't like this the makeup of this Gruppe guy as a kicker. I just don't.
So I've got a problem with a corner named Clarence, and you've got a problem with any guy on the team who looks like that he could pass for a sophomore in high school.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, he can't hit long kicks, right? Like his stats beyond 40 yards are pretty brutal.
His stats are not good in general, but yeah.
I wouldn't go that far. He's good inside 40, which I guess we could.
We've talked about him enough. It's a big worry to sum it up.
It's a big worry. It's gonna be like the first time he trots out there. I'm just guessing that ball will not even come close to the field goal. He's got to get his jitters out because he's coming from Arkansas State.
I will laugh the first time he lines up the kick at Ohio State. Regardless of how it goes.
Yeah, we're being hard on him, but I feel like it's just the first time any new kicker comes out, it's a really jarring experience. I know that he kicked it for several years in college at Arkansas State, but kicking at Arkansas State is just a little bit different than kicking in the horseshoe on prime time, and everyone in the college football world is watching you.
No, yeah.
All right, let's get to a couple fan-submitted questions. All right, our first one. Shout out to Drew Brennan 77, loyal listener. He's always on these questions. We've already talked about this a little bit. Over/under for Lorenzo Styles this year: 65 catches, 700 yards, 9.5 TDs.
Under catches, over yards, over touchdowns.
All right, I agree on under on catches. The last Notre Dame receiver to eclipse 65 receptions and 9.5 TDs in a season was Chase Claypool in 2019, and he had 66 and 13, so he barely eclipsed it. Now, Michael Mayer had 71 catches last year, but he's a tight end, and I think he's going to have even more this year, so that makes it harder for a guy like Styles to get more than 65. 9.5 TDs, that's going to be close, but I think he's just going to be a hair under. He should be well over yards. Like, Javon McKinley was over that in 2020 in less games, and Lorenzo Styles is way better than Javon McKinley. Like, he breaks a few open, which he showed he's got the speed to do. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he came close to 1,000. Hell, Kevin Austin had nearly 900 last season, and I think Lorenzo's probably better than Austin now. Granted, it would be nice to have Austin, but so I'm going under, over, under.
Okay, fair enough. Next one from Pat Ball on Instagram. Any word on Logan Diggs? Will he be active for OSU, and how big of a difference will Harry Hiestand make in year one?
Yeah, so we talked about Diggs. I'm guessing end of September we should see him, and he'll probably have to ease into action. But if he's active for Ohio State, I'll be shocked. And how big of a difference will Harry Hiestand make in year one? Difficult to project just how much like the line is going to improve just because Blake Fisher's healthy and Joe Alton, these guys have more experience. But when the reports we've seen and the way that current offensive linemen have talked about Harry Hiestand and how important he's been grilling them on, or how much of an emphasis he's put on technique, it seems like night and day compared to his predecessor, Jeff Quinn. So just from that standpoint alone, if their technique is a lot better and they got guys healthier, they're going to be a lot better. So I think it will make a big difference. But again, I'm not saying like they're going to be Joe Moore Award contenders just yet.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying on Hiestand. I'm going to go out there. I am not going to say Logan Diggs is going to be active for Ohio State, but it would not shock me. His mom actually tweeted something yesterday suggesting he might be good to go, too. She said, she quote tweeted a video of him working out, saying the $1 million question everyone's been asking, how's he doing since his surgery? He's been working. Is he ready for Ohio State, though? The answer is we'll see. Go Irish. I mean, the fact that it's even a question at this point is remarkable to me, so I don't know. Who knows? I think it's probably likely he'll be back before the North Carolina game at a minimum, but I would not be shocked if we do see him out there week 1. So we'll see.
That'd be an incredible turnaround if he's able.
Yeah, I mean, but like I said, I was shocked like a month ago he didn't still have a sling on because every I mean, granted, everybody I know who tore their labrum was not a Division I athlete, but like everybody I know like 3 or 4 people who did it, and it was a long recovery.
Yeah. All right, this next one comes from Mark Wegesbeck. Which player has put on the most beef this offseason? I think this is TBD until Notre Dame releases its full roster at the start of camp, because once we get that, then you can actually see the change in weight from spring practice to now. But we can guess. So who would you guess?
I don't know. I mean, I think the rumors are that Zeke Correll's pretty big these days. Now, will he keep that weight on? I don't know, because I think that's been an issue for him in the past, but that's probably the best guess. I was trying to think of somebody funny, but I realized that we're so old now. Yeah. He started drinking heavy after he heard this podcast.
Blake Grupe went from 140 to 150.
Yeah, he's like, Jesus, these guys fucking hate me.
I haven't even kicked.
Don't believe in you. Yeah.
Look, it's not that we hate you. It's just that we have no faith in you.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Okay, I'm going to say Zeke Correll too because of the same reasons. Like, if he's basically forced himself into the starting lineup at center too, it's a position where you got to be a little bit beefy. It could be him. I'm also saying Jalen Sneed because he came in pretty thin, and I feel like the jump that guys make when they're like their first full year in the college weight program is probably always going to be the most severe. Like when you're just locked in every day and you have sort of the guidance and just like every day what you're going through with Coach Bayless. I think he's like in terms of just how many pounds he's put on since the time he got on campus till now, I'd probably say Jalen Sneed.
All right. Okay. I like that. Next one comes from longtime listener, first-time caller, Michael Bonello. Is the 15.5-point spread against Ohio State disrespectful, or is it disrespectful?
Okay, I'm going to say it's definitely disrespectful to a degree. I think it should be lower, probably under 14. But I'm not that surprised it's that high, just given that like Ohio State is known commodities and C.J. Stroud and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Plus, it's in Columbus. If it were in South Bend and we're in this point spread, then I would say that's super disrespectful. I'd probably be closer to 10. But yeah, I think it's a little bit disrespectful, but I guess, I don't know. I guess I can see why that. I can more realistically understand this spread than compared to 2019 when we went to Athens to play Georgia, and the spread was like fucking 18.5 by kick, and I thought that was insane based on how the two teams played a year before. So it's not quite that disrespectful, and we saw how that game turned out, and Notre Dame had a chance to win in the last drive at the end. But yeah, a little bit less than that.
See, I actually thought the Georgia spread made sense at the time, because the way we had started that.
That's true. After the Louisville game, I was probably like, you know what, that's astute.
Yeah, it is disrespectful, and here's why. First off, never really gets talked about that Smith and Jigba's explosion in the Rose Bowl was against two running backs playing in the Utah secondary who had never played corner in college. That's a pretty big deal. Additionally, Ohio State, outside of the time they just murdered Michigan State, and I guess kind of the Purdue game, they looked and at times were, in fact, very beatable last year. It didn't matter how many yards CJ Stroud threw for. Yeah, I know Jim Knowles is there, but like, what's he going to be able to fix in one game? I don't know. There seems to be a bit of an anointing that's occurred here, and I just don't like that. Additionally, Ohio State has stunk up the joint in these big non-conference games at home over the years. Since 2005, they're 1-5 in marquee Power 5 non-conference home games, losing to Texas in 2005, USC in 2009, Virginia Tech in 2014, Oklahoma in 2017, and Oregon last year. Their lone win in these games came against Miami in 2010, who finished 7-6 that year under Randy Shannon. Notre Dame constantly gets ripped for its poor performances in big bowl games. That spans some decades, unfortunately, so I don't see why the same shouldn't be discussed with Ohio State's performance in the horseshoe against non-Big Ten Power 5 schools.
That makes sense to me. Another thing that I feel like is not being talked about is this idea that, like, coming out week one, these teams are finished products. Like, if you watch most games in week one and even week two, they're pretty ugly. Like, even if there's a huge talent gap.
We have not had a good, like, opener since the Texas game in 2015.
Yeah, that's true.
And, I mean, like, seriously, I can't think of of who did we play in 2017?
To start the season?
I guess it was like Temple.
Yeah.
But, like, whatever. That doesn't count. But even, like, some of these, like 2020, Duke, that was bad.
Yeah,
2019, Louisville, that was bad. Michigan, 2018 is a little bit different.
But
even that one got a little bit closer.
All those games were sloppy. Both teams.
Yeah.
Like, that Michigan team in 2018 was pretty good. And, like, they figured things out in the second half, but they came out just making dumb penalties, committing stupid mistakes. So they're most of the time in week one, these teams are playing below their talent level just because it's week one. Like, they haven't, they had fall camp, but the first time you go up against an actual opponent, it's so much different than going against the guys who you see every single day in practice. So the idea that Ohio State is going to come out clicking on all cylinders, I think that's a little bit far-fetched, even if they have more talent, which I think they do. So, yes, Notre Dame might not be like a finished product, but neither is Ohio State. And even though it's at home, like, they could commit some dumb mistakes too. They got some young guys on their team and some new guys that they're trying to implement. So, yeah, from that aspect, that's a little bit disrespectful as well. Okay, last one. This comes from Chris Janis. Of the following freshmen, rank most likely to have a TD versus Ohio State: Steve Angeli, Tobias Merriweather, Jaden Mickey, or Jabron Payne. Let me just say right now, if Steve Angeli is playing in the Ohio State game, something has gone horribly, horribly wrong. Okay, he has a second question. Who is most likely to have a Kyle Hamilton-like hype in preseason camp?
Okay, I'm going to say Jaden Mickey is most likely to score a touchdown for Ohio State, and that's on a punt return on the first drive of the game. I think there's been some chatter about him potentially returning punts, and if he's not doing it, then completely forget I ever said that, but there's definitely been some chatter about it, and that would be a pretty electric start.
That's going to be Matt Salerno. There's no way they're putting a true freshman back there to return punts against Ohio State in the shoe. And his first game ever. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I don't know why they just don't have a lifelong like spot on the roster for John Goodman to just catch punts if that's what we're going to do. So
John Goodman has unlimited eligibility. They're like, it doesn't matter. He literally is
John, just come up here for September through October. We'll give you free rounds at Warren every day. You just got to catch the fucking punts. That's it. Like, you don't got to do anything else. And then, Halo rule. Yeah. You can't get hit. It's fine. Just catch the punts.
John, you somehow have mastered the ability to fair catch every single punt, but we're going to throw a 55-yard bomb. You're going to one-hand it with three defenders, like, falling over you. They use a pro at that.
Yeah, and John's probably like, I have kids now. I can't do that anymore, Coach. But, it's... I don't care.
You think John Goodman is listening? We'll tag him in this. Okay, you didn't answer the second part. Who's most likely to have Kyle Hamilton like hype in camp?
I'm gonna say. So if it's the same list we're talking about, which I'll assume it is, but it might not be. I guess I'll say Tobias Merriweather just because I feel like there's been a lot of hype. Okay, well I'll still answer it that way. Because I feel like there's been a lot of hype around him already, and to be totally honest with you, some of it seems contrived to me, or it's almost like people trying to speak it into existence because we need him to be good. So yeah, but I'll go with Merriweather.
Okay, I think for me, like I'm assuming that Chris is at like his freshman year when Kyle Hamilton came out and Pete Sampson tweeted like Kyle Hamilton had 3 interceptions in his first practice at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're ever going to get that to that level, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Mickey just kept it going and like just forced himself onto the field. It seems like, I mean, Marcus Freeman like referenced him as one of the guys who's become a leader on the team as a true freshman,
crazy.
early enrollee. That's nuts. And I know that he talks a lot of shit to the receivers, and that might get annoying at times. But the fact that the head coach is even mentioning him as a leader at that early, I think if he comes out and he just has an unbelievable camp and forces him on his way onto the field, like, look, no one is going to get the level of hype that Kyle Hamilton had his true freshman year. Like what he was doing in camp, and then the way that he delivered against Louisville in his first ever game, and then his first ever play at Notre Dame Stadium, picking it off and returning it for a touchdown. That's not going to happen. But I think Mickey could actually have such a good camp that he basically forces he outplays Clarence Lewis, who's been there. I know, I'm sorry, that's your guy. I don't mean to interrupt the hype train on Clarence Lewis, but if he does something like that, or then he becomes a starting nickel over Tariq Bracy, I think that's the closest thing we're going to get.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, we've been going kind of long. It's a lot going on, dude. Camp starting, football season is so close. Do you feel it?
Sort of, outside of the fact that it's like 90 degrees and super muggy out, but I guess that plays with the idea of camp. Also, the one thing I will say is, and you kind of brought this up earlier, people are getting like angered by the idea of fall camp. Just don't be that pissed off about it. It's not a big deal.
I'm not pissed off. I do think it's funny, though.
I know you're not, but there are a lot of people out there that are, so I'm going to make a bigger emphasis of calling it fall camp to piss those people off.
Yeah, I guess what's the alternative? I don't like preseason camp as much. Training camp is basically, I guess the NFL owns that term, even though that's literally what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess so.
All right. That'll do it for this episode of Sons of Saturday Irish. Thank you for listening or watching. If you decided to check us out on YouTube, subscribe. Seriously, you're dead to me if you do not subscribe. It's on site.
Yeah, and you know what? We also haven't gotten like a review on Apple Podcasts in like a while. So if you feel so inclined, just do that, because maybe we'll start reading those again, because I don't know that we ever read any of them, but there's some out there, but it's been a while.
The reviews, yeah, and I think you can review podcasts on Spotify now too. So
there you go.
If you like us, if you like took the time of your day to listen to us, just do us a favor and subscribe. And if you don't, again, you're dead to me. We're going to be back on a more regular basis going forward, doing at least one a week, probably up until the season officially starts, and we'll ramp it up even more. So give us a follow at Sons of Sat Irish on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to stay updated on all of our content and new episodes. And yeah, please subscribe. I can't stress that enough. On YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, everywhere. All right, that's enough from us. We'll talk to you guys again soon.